Julian Marsh, a private banker of considerable renown, cultivated a life of impeccable order and absolute control. Every aspect, from the precisely timed brewing of his morning artisanal coffee, a single origin blend, meticulously sourced and prepared with scientific precision, to the meticulously organized digital files on his custom-built server arrays, housed in a dedicated, temperature-controlled room, spoke of a man who left nothing to chance. His world was a symphony of planned precision, each note perfectly placed, each variable accounted for. He wasn't merely wealthy, he was the architect of wealth, entrusted with the colossal fortunes of the world's elite, a silent custodian of secrets held more tightly than any government archive. He operated in a rarefied atmosphere where discretion was paramount, and the consequences of even a minor security lapse could trigger global financial tremors. His reputation wasn't just built on his acumen. It was forged in an unblemished record of absolute confidentiality and impenetrable security. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day, and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. At the heart of his meticulously managed domain, beneath the very foundations of his sprawling, minimalist mansion carved into a private hillside overlooking the Pacific, lay his magnum opus, a climate-controlled, subterranean vault. This wasn't merely a strongbox. It was a fortress, a technological marvel humming with an intricate web of biometric scanners, pressure plates, laser grids that crisscrossed every approach, and a sophisticated artificial intelligence monitoring every anomaly. It was a self-sufficient ecosystem of protection, designed to thwart any conceivable threat, natural or human. Within its reinforced concrete walls, shielded by layers of electromagnetic dampeners and titanium alloys, rested priceless physical documents, ancient deeds, irreplaceable historical artifacts, and the encrypted digital keys to staggering client fortunes. The air within was filtered to hospital-grade purity, the humidity maintained at an exact equilibrium, the temperature constantly monitored to preserve sensitive materials. Julian had personally overseen its construction, a project spanning years and costing tens of millions, a testament to the value of the information and assets it held. It was his ultimate safeguard, a tangible representation of his commitment to his clients' absolute privacy and security. Julian's most cherished possession, however, resided not within the cold metallic confines of his vault, but in the vibrant, effervescent spirit of his daughter, Ava. 6 years old, with eyes that sparkled like freshly cut emeralds and a laugh that chimed like a cascade of tiny bells, Ava was the one unpredictable, glorious element in his otherwise rigidly structured existence. She was his sun, his moon, his wild, uncontainable joy, a bright splash of vibrant color in his often monochromatic world of finance and figures. Their bond was fiercely protective, a silent understanding passing between them that transcended words, a warmth that melted even his most disciplined defenses. Julian, usually guarded, found himself utterly defenseless against her innocent charm, her boundless imagination. He indulged her whims, reveled in her ability to see magic in the mundane, and often, to his own quiet amusement, found himself drawn into her fantastical worlds of talking animals and benevolent fairies. He cherished their ritualistic bedtime stories, the way her tiny hand would instinctively reach for his in the dark, a connection he guarded more fiercely than any vault. The day began like any other, bathed in the golden hues of a perfect Tuesday morning, sunlight streaming through the floor to ceiling windows of their breakfast nook, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Ava, clad in a pink princess dress she insisted on wearing even for breakfast, her crown slightly askew, prattled cheerfully about an imaginary tea party she was planning with her collection of stuffed animals, antique porcelain dolls. Julian, attempting to butter a piece of toast with a semblance of calm while simultaneously mentally reviewing the day's upcoming global market trends, listened with a fond smile, His attention momentarily diverted Berthet from his intricate calculations. Then, as she slid from her custom-made, child-sized chair, heading towards the expansive playroom, she paused, a thoughtful frown momentarily creasing her small, earnest brow. "Daddy," she chirped, her voice a pure, unblemished sound that always seemed to cut through the hum of his complex thoughts. "The angel in the hallway said she'd help me if I told her about the vault." Julian paused, the butter knife hovering mid-air, a faint glint of confusion in his eyes. He chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound that usually made Ava giggle and cling to his leg. "The angel, sweet pea? What angel are you talking about, my little storyteller?" His mind, already sifting through the day's upcoming high-stakes meetings and encrypted financial reports, barely registered the peculiar turn of phrase, attributing it to Ava's rich, unfettered imagination. She had always possessed a vivid imagination, populating their grand, sometimes austere home with invisible friends and talking inanimate objects, a charming quirk he often indulged. Ava skipped back, her eyes wide with earnestness, her small face alight with the conviction of her belief. "You know, Daddy!" "The pretty lady with the big white wings. Near the secret door," she asked me. "Where you keep your special sparkly things, the ones you said were very, very important." And I told her they were in the deep room, the one only your fingers and I can open. And she said she would help me find my missing dolly, Princess Twinkle, if I told her. She gestured vaguely towards the long, art-filled hallway that connected the main living areas to Julian's private study, and from there to the discreetly concealed, almost invisible entrance of the vault. Julian's smile tightened, a faint prickle of unease rippling beneath his meticulously composed exterior. The angel Ava spoke of was a towering, exquisitely carved marble statue of a winged cherub, an antique Renaissance piece he had recently acquired from a renowned European gallery. It was positioned strategically in the hallway. Its innocent, almost benevolent expression belied its true function, for subtly integrated into its intricate carvings, specifically within the cherub's right eye socket, was a state-of-the-art biometric scanner. This scanner, recognizing Julian's unique retinal pattern and fingerprint, was a crucial, almost invisible component of the vault's multi-layered security system. He had explained to Ava, in simple, playful terms, that it was a special lock that only his magic finger and special eye could open, a whimsical way to deter her from ever tampering with it, reinforcing the idea of its importance without revealing the true high stakes involved. He even vividly recalled a playful moment, several months ago, where he had allowed her to press her tiny finger against the scanner, explaining it was reading her magic, a harmless game that seemed to delight her beyond measure. The thought now sent a distinct, unsettling shiver down his spine. The casualness with which Ava had described the angel's questioning and her enthusiastic willingness to provide information struck Julian with a peculiar disquiet. He forced the unsettling feeling away, attributing it to paternal overprotectiveness, an occupational hazard of fatherhood. Ava was just being Ava, weaving fantastical tales from the tapestry of her rich inner world. He bent down, kissed the top of her head, inhaling the sweet scent of her strawberry shampoo. "That's just a statue, sweetheart. It can't talk. It's just a beautiful piece of art. Now, go find your dolly, Princess Twinkle. Maybe she's hiding in the toy chest with Mr. Snuggles." He watched her skip away, her pink dress swirling around her, his concern quickly fading as his mind, ever practical, returned to the tangible demands of his impossibly busy day, mentally dismissing the strange incident as nothing more than a child's playful fantasy. The carefully constructed tranquility of Julian's meticulously structured existence was shattered just hours later. He was deeply engrossed in his home office, a fortress of soundproofed glass and dark polished wood, reviewing highly encrypted financial projections for a new investment fund, when his personal security system, a network of silent alarms, discrete pressure sensors embedded in the floors, and motion detectors hidden behind seemingly innocuous fixtures flared to life. A series of urgent red alerts flashed across his private console, a bespoke holographic display that usually hummed with reassuring green status indicators. Vault compromise detected, unauthorized erased. Access, data breach imminent. The sterile, digital voice of the system administrator, usually a soothing monotone, now pulsed with an alarming, almost panicked urgency, echoing in the otherwise silent room. Julian froze, his heart slamming against his ribs with the force of a battering ram. The vault. Impossible. He had personally overseen its construction, implemented every failsafe, double-checked every protocol, every line of code. It was his masterpiece of security engineering. No one, absolutely no one, knew the full extent of its multi-layered defenses, let alone how to bypass them. A cold dread, unlike anything he had ever experienced in his high-stakes career, began to spread through him, seeping into his bones. This wasn't a mere glitch, a system error. This was a deliberate, sophisticated infiltration. He immediately initiated the lockdown protocol, a series of commands designed to hermetically seal the vault, isolate its internal network, and notify an elite, rapid-response private security unit, backed by local law enforcement. But as he watched the digital map of his home security system, a chill deeper than the deepest vault air snaked its way down his spine. The breach hadn't come from the exterior perimeter, or even the main house entry points. The intrusion originated within the house, specifically from the long, art-filled hallway leading directly to the vault entrance. His fingers, surprisingly steady despite the surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins, navigated to the CCTV footage archives. He selected the relevant timestamp, the period immediately following Ava's peculiar, seemingly innocuous comment about the angel. The screen flickered, then resolved into a crystal-clear, high-definition image of his grand hallway, bathed in the soft glow of recessed lighting. The towering angel statue stood sentinel, its marble wings seemingly poised for ethereal flight, its serene face gazing impassively into the empty space. Then, a figure entered the frame. It was Helena Frost, his girlfriend. Julian's breath hitched in his throat, a sharp, ragged gasp that seemed to tear at his lungs. Helena, with her striking cascade of silver hair that caught the light like spun moonlight, her piercing blue eyes that often held a captivating depth, had entered his life 6 months ago. She had brought a vibrancy, a spontaneity, a zest for life that Julian, with his rigidly structured existence, hadn't realized he craved. She was an art consultant by profession, often traveling for high-profile auctions and private collections, and had recently been spending extended periods at his mansion, ostensibly decorating and advising Braid on his vast, eclectic art collection. Her presence had been a soothing balm, a beautiful, unpredictable counterpoint to the rigid discipline of his work. He had trusted her implicitly, allowed her unfettered access to his home, his personal space, even to the fringes of his private world. The sheer weight of this betrayal, the crushing realization of her duplicity, pressed down on him, suffocating him in a wave of bitter disbelief. The footage, playing in chilling slow motion, revealed a meticulously executed deception. Helena, dressed in casual chic attire, a silk blouse and tailored trousers that belied her true intentions, approached the angel statue. Her movements were fluid, practiced, almost artistic in their precision, indicating a prior reconnaissance, a rehearsed routine. She knelt, seemingly admiring the intricate carvings of the cherub's robes, her head cocked in a gesture of contemplation, a perfect pose for an art lover. Then, with a subtle, almost imperceptible shift of her wrist, she produced a small, impossibly thin device from a hidden pocket within her blouse. It was a sophisticated optical scanner, no larger than a thimble, designed to mimic biological readings. She pressed it, with a delicate, practiced touch, against the angel's eye, the very biometric scanner Ava had so innocently described. A faint, almost invisible pulse of light emanated from the device, a silent, damning confirmation of its illicit function. Julian's mind reeled as he recalled the playful game with Ava, the tender moment of shared intimacy, and the magic scanner. Had Helena been observing them then? Had she deliberately engineered that playful interaction, knowing its future utility? The thought sent a fresh wave of nausea through him. The next sequence was even more disturbing, confirming his worst fears. Helena straightened up, her expression unreadable, then calmly walked to the vault door, which was disguised as a seamless, unblemished section of the hallway wall, integrated so perfectly it was invisible to the untrained eye. She placed her palm against a hidden, pressure-sensitive panel, expertly navigating the subtle tactile clues. The wall receded silently, with a barely audible pneumatic hiss, revealing the gleaming, reinforced steel of the vault door, its multiple locking mechanisms visible for only a fleeting second. Julian had designed this system to recognize only his unique palm print and a specific, complex vocal command, a multi-factor authentication system. He watched, aghast, as Helena, with chilling composure, leaned in, her lips almost brushing the subtle microphone concealed in the doorframe, and uttered a string of seemingly innocuous words, a phrase he often used playfully with Ava during their secret games. "Open sesame, my little treasure." The massive vault door, impossibly, hissed open with a soft, metallic sigh, revealing the sterile, brightly lit interior of his supposedly impregnable sanctuary. Julian gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles white, his nails digging painfully into the polished wood. The phrase. That silly, whimsical little phrase. He had taught Ava that secret password, a playful invocation for their pretend games of pirates and hidden treasures, a shared secret between father and daughter. He had never, in his wildest nightmares, imagined it could be used against him, especially not in conjunction with his own daughter's biometric data, unknowingly acquired and replicated. Ava, in her innocent desire to help the angel find her doll, had not only unwittingly shared the precise, secret location of the vault, but had also, through Helena's cunning manipulation, provided the very biometric key and the verbal command for its entry. The angel, a beautiful, inanimate object, had become a conduit for his undoing, a silent accomplice in a chilling act of betrayal. The footage continued, revealing Helena entering the vault. She moved with purpose, with a terrifying familiarity, bypassing security layers Julian himself found challenging to navigate without conscious effort. She knew exactly what she was looking for, precisely where each critical item was stored. She pulled out a secure, portable hard drive, a specialized, highly encrypted device he recognized as one of his own proprietary storage units, containing crucial encryption keys and digital copies of highly sensitive client data, including blueprints for emerging technologies and unreleased financial strategies. She transferred massive files with startling speed, her fingers flying across a miniature keyboard, her face a mask of cold, unwavering concentration, utterly devoid of emotion. Then, with the same chilling calm, she meticulously resealed the vault, leaving no physical trace of her intrusion, every panel realigned perfectly, every sensor reset. Julian's vision blurred with a searing mix of fury and profound, soul-crushing sorrow. The betrayal was a festering wound, deeper than any he had ever known, tearing through the very fabric of his trust. It wasn't just the potentially catastrophic financial loss for his clients and for his own meticulously built reputation, but the shattering of his most fundamental beliefs, the cruel, cynical manipulation of his daughter's pure, innocent trust. Helena, the woman he had allowed into his most guarded world, into the very heart of his family, had exploited his greatest vulnerability. his profound, unconditional love for Ava. He reviewed the footage again, searching for any flicker of hesitation, any sign of remorse, any moment of humanity in Helena's movements. There was none. Her actions were precise, calculated, the chillingly efficient movements of a professional operative, a master of deception. He saw her glance at the angel statue as she smoothly exited the hall, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk playing on her lips, a silent acknowledgement of her cunning, a final, mocking gesture towards his parade. Blind trust. The silence of his office became oppressive, suffocating, punctuated only by the frantic thrumming of his own pulse, a dissonant rhythm against the quiet hum of his high-tech equipment. He had prided himself on his foresight, his meticulous planning, his ability to anticipate every conceivable threat, to build unbreachable walls around his financial empire. Yet, the greatest threat had come from within, disguised as affection, armed with the unwitting cooperation of his own child, a weapon he had forged in innocence. The angel now seemed to mock him, its serene marble gaze reflecting his shattered trust, a cold, unfeeling observer of his downfall. Julian knew, with a chilling certainty that settled deep in his bones, that his life of carefully controlled order had just been irrevocably plunged into chaos. The true extent of the damage, both financial and emotional, was yet to be fully revealed, but the tremors of its impact were already shaking the foundations of his existence. Julian spent the next several hours in a state of hyper-focused urgency, operating on sheer adrenaline, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a cold, precise rage that fueled his every action. He immediately contacted his lead security expert, Marcus Thorne, a former Special Forces operative and a man of formidable intelligence and unwavering loyalty. He gave Marcus only the barest details, the chilling summary delivered in a clipped, decisive tone. Vault breach, internal compromise, all evidence points to Helena Frost. Get here now. Marcus, a man of few words and decisive action, simply replied, "On my way, ETA 20 minutes." Next, Julian initiated a comprehensive, real-time audit of all his digital assets, not just those located within the new compromised vault. He worked with a feverish intensity, his mind racing through potential vulnerabilities, tracing every digital footprint Helena might have inadvertently left behind. He discovered, to his dismay, a series of subtle, almost imperceptible data siphons that had been running continuously for weeks, possibly months, prior to the vault breach. These sophisticated programs had been funneling small, encrypted packets of highly sensitive financial and proprietary information to an untraceable offshore server, a phantom digital repository. It wasn't just the vault data. It was a systematic, prolonged bleed of critical intelligence, a long-term act of corporate espionage masquerading as a whirlwind romance. Helena wasn't merely a thief seeking a quick score. She was a professional corporate spy, operating with a level of sophistication and foresight that made Julian's blood run cold. She had been building a comprehensive profile of his operations, his clients, and his vulnerabilities, meticulously gathering intelligence for a far larger, more sinister purpose. He also uncovered fragments of encrypted messages exchanged between Helena and an unknown party, rife with coded language and chilling references to acquisition targets, extraction protocols, and market destabilization. The true scope of her operation was far larger than he had initially imagined, extending beyond his personal fortune and into the global financial landscape. She wasn't just after his clients' fortunes. She was gathering strategic intelligence, planning a series of interconnected incursions, potentially aimed at manipulating global markets or disrupting major corporations. The crushing realization hit him like a physical blow. Helena hadn't merely betrayed him emotionally. She had meticulously infiltrated his entire professional network, using his trust and his daughter's innocence as a stepping stone to a much larger, more destructive prize. Marcus arrived, his imposing figure filling the doorway of Julian's office, his face a granite mask of grim determination. He absorbed the details Julian laid out with dispassionate efficiency, his keen eyes missing nothing, occasionally nodding grimly as Julian meticulously presented the evidence, the CCTV footage replaying on a loop. "She's good, Julian," Marcus conceded, his voice a low rumble. "Very good. Exploiting the child's innocence, that's a new low, even for someone in this game." His words, devoid of personal judgment, only amplified Julian's internal torment, the bitter taste of his own blind trust in his mouth. He saw his carefully constructed world, his fortress of security, crumbling around him, all because of a playful game of magic with his daughter. "We need to apprehend her," Julian stated, his voice flat, devoid of the raw emotion he felt bubbling beneath the surface, replaced by a steely resolve. "Before she can monetize anything she's stolen, before she disappears into the shadows of the dark web or some unknown destination." "And the data she siphoned?" Marcus asked, his gaze sharp, probing. "Can we retrieve it? Can we even trace it back to a source?" Julian shook his head, a grim line forming on his lips. "It's on an offshore server, likely a series of nested proxies and distributed ledger technology, encrypted with a level of sophistication I haven't seen before. Retrieving it will be a race against time and against her to decrypt it before she sells it or uses it. Our primary objective isn't just recovery, it's prevention of its weaponization." He paused, a new thought emerging, colder and more calculating, born from years of navigating treacherous financial landscapes. "We don't just apprehend her, Marcus. We use her. We turn her ambition against her." Marcus raised an eyebrow, a flicker of professional curiosity in his eyes, a slight shift in his posture. "How so?" "She's a known quantity, highly intelligent, highly dangerous. A direct confrontation is risky. She knows the immense value of this data, its potential to shift markets, influence geopolitics, or dismantle corporate giants. She won't just dump it on the dark web for a quick buck, a common thief's error. She'll be looking for the highest bidder, a major corporate entity looking to destabilize a rival, or a nation-state seeking a strategic advantage, a new leverage point." Julian walked to his large panoramic window, gazing out at the meticulously manicured gardens, seeing none of their serene beauty, his mind already formulating a complex strategy. "We let her make contact. We track her. We identify her buyer, and then we intercept. We turn her operation into a trap, a meticulously baited snare from which there is no escape." Marcus considered this, his tactical mind already running simulations, calculating probabilities. Then a slow, almost imperceptible smile spread across his face, a chilling expression that rarely touched his stoic features. "A sting operation. Risky, very risky. She's perceptive, intuitive. She'll smell a rat if we're not perfect. She's also arrogant." Julian countered, a ghost of a cold smile touching his own lips, a reflection of the anger and determination simmering within him. "She thinks she's outsmarted me, that she's played me for a fool. She thinks she's untouchable, operating in a league of her own. That arrogance, Marcus, will be her ultimate downfall. It's the Achilles heel of every truly cunning adversary." He turned, his eyes burning with a newfound resolve, a steel forged in betrayal. "We'll play her game, but on our terms. We'll make her believe she's winning right up until the very moment she walks into our net, completely unaware." The immediate priority was comprehensive damage control and the meticulous construction of their counter-operation. Julian fabricated a series of subtle, almost imperceptible, minor system glitches within his network, just significant enough to create a plausible reason for any slight delays in transactions or data access, but subtle enough not to arouse Helena's suspicion. He wanted her to feel secure, to believe her actions had gone unnoticed, or at least completely undetected by him. He maintained a semblance of normalcy in his daily life, a Herculean effort that strained his composure to its limits, requiring immense mental discipline. He still shared breakfast with Ava, read her bedtime stories, even managed a genuine, if slightly strained, laugh when she recounted another fantastical adventure with her imaginary friends. Each interaction, however, was tinged with the bitter knowledge of how her innocence had been weaponized against him, a constant, low-level ache in his chest. Helena, meanwhile, continued her elaborate charade. She lingered in the house, offering unsolicited advice on art placement, her presence a constant, painful reminder of her calculated deceit. She would occasionally cast a knowing, almost triumphant glance at the angel statue, a subtle gesture that sent a fresh wave of ice through Julian's veins, a quiet taunt. He observed her, meticulously cataloging her habits, her contacts, her subtle tells, the slight widening of her pupils when she received a coded message, the almost imperceptible tremor in her hand when discussing a particularly high-value piece of art. He noticed her increased phone activity, the hushed conversations conducted in secluded corners of the house, the furtive glances at her watch as she checked for specific timestamps. She was meticulously preparing for her next move, orchestrating the sale of the stolen data, convinced of her own cleverness. A week passed, an eternity of calculated deception and emotional turmoil. Julian had managed to secure a global legal injunction freezing any assets tied to the stolen data, a preemptive strike that would make it virtually impossible for Helena to liquidate her ill-gotten gains, quickly or cleanly. He also discreetly contacted his most vulnerable clients, gently informing them of a potential industry-wide security vulnerability, and implementing additional bespoke layers of protection for their digital assets, without revealing the full extent of the breach or the identity of the perpetrator. It was a delicate dance, balancing transparency with discretion, protecting their interests without causing widespread panic or a loss of confidence in his firm. One evening, as Julian was carefully tucking Ava into bed, adjusting her favorite plush blanket and smoothing her hair, she looked up at him, her eyes clouded with a childlike confusion that tugged at his heart. "Daddy?" she mumbled, half asleep, her voice soft and vulnerable. "The angel said Helena was a very clever lady, and that I was a good helper for telling her secrets. She said I helped her find magic." The innocent words landed like tiny, invisible daggers in Julian's heart, a fresh wound bleeding into his already bruised soul. Helena had not only manipulated Ava's inherent innocence, she had actively reinforced the narrative, twisting the truth, making Ava believe she had done something good, something magical. The depth of her depravity, her willingness to corrupt a child's pure spirit for her own gain, was truly staggering, a horrifying testament to her lack of conscience. He held Ava tighter, a silent, fierce promise forming in his mind. Helena would pay for this, not just for the immense financial damage, but for the profound psychological impact, for the violation of his daughter's trusting, vulnerable spirit. The trap was now meticulously set, a complex web of digital and physical snares. Marcus, leveraging his extensive network of contacts from his previous life, had established a sophisticated dummy corporation, a supposed high-net-worth buyer interested in acquiring strategic financial intelligence on a global scale. They initiated contact with Helena through a carefully constructed digital breadcrumb trail, designed to appear completely legitimate, highly lucrative, and discreet. Helena, driven by insatiable greed and her own misplaced confidence in her unassailable cleverness, took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. She arranged a meeting, not in a bustling, easily monitored city, but in a remote, secluded villa overlooking the shimmering Mediterranean, a place where she believed she could conduct her illicit transaction without any risk of detection or interference. It was a classic move of a seasoned operative, choosing an isolated, luxurious location to minimize risk and maximize her sense of control. But Julian and Marcus had anticipated this. They had already discreetly infiltrated the villa's sophisticated security systems, turning its remote location and high-tech defenses into their own advantage. Every camera, every microphone, every sensor was now feeding data directly to their command center. Julian, maintaining his meticulous facade, feigned a sudden, urgent business trip to a remote financial conference, ensuring Helena believed he would be far away, preoccupied, and completely out of the picture during her illicit rendezvous. He even made a dramatic show of saying a tearful goodbye to Ava, a performance that gnawed at his conscience, but was absolutely necessary for the operation's success, for Helena to truly believe he was unaware and vulnerable. Helena, ever the manipulator, offered a sympathetic, almost tender hug, her eyes betraying not an ounce of genuine warmth, only a cold, calculating glint of satisfaction at her perceived triumph. The journey to the villa was a blur of private jets, encrypted satellite communications, and final tactical briefings conducted in hushed tones. Julian felt a strange calm descending upon him, a quiet certainty that settled deep in his bones. The initial emotional turmoil of the discovery had hardened into a steely, unyielding resolve. This wasn't just about reclaiming stolen data or punishing a thief. It was about restoring a sense of order to his shattered world, about demonstrating that even the most cunning, insidious betrayals would ultimately be met with swift, undeniable justice. It was about proving to himself and to his daughter that integrity, once compromised, could be painstakingly rebuilt. The villa itself was a breathtaking edifice of white stucco and azure tiles, a masterpiece of modern architecture, perched precariously on a cliff overlooking the shimmering, endless expanse of the sea. Julian and Marcus, along with a small, elite team of highly trained operatives, arrived under the cloak of darkness, moving like silent shadows through the fragrant Mediterranean night, their movements precise and coordinated. They established their positions, setting up state-of-the-art surveillance equipment, ensuring every angle was covered, every whisper recorded, meticulously preparing for the moment of truth. The morning of the planned exchange dawned clear and bright, the sea a placid, shimmering canvas of blues and greens, an almost idyllic backdrop to the impending confrontation. Helena arrived punctually, stepping out of a sleek, black, unmarked car, her silver hair catching the morning sun like a halo. She exuded an air of casual elegance, a deceptive tranquility. But Julian, observing her through a high-powered scope from his hidden vantage point, noticed the subtle tension in her jaw, the way her eyes constantly scanned her surroundings, a professional's innate wariness. She was cautious, but not cautious enough to detect the invisible net closing around her. She was met by Marcus, disguised as the buyer's chief negotiator, a man whose stern demeanor, piercing gaze, and imposing presence were designed to intimidate and test the resolve of even the most hardened operatives. Their conversation, monitored by Julian through a secure audio feed, was a tense, intricate exchange of coded language, a carefully choreographed dance of veiled threats, tantalizing promises, and feigned negotiations. Helena presented the hard drive, its unassuming exterior shimmering with the promise of illicit wealth, containing secrets that could destabilize entire industries. Marcus, playing his role perfectly, feigned a detailed review, occasionally feigning concern over certain encryption protocols, subtly buying time, allowing Julian to finalize his preparations. Julian waited, his finger hovering over the trigger of a tranquilizer dart gun, a custom-made, non-lethal measure designed to incapacitate Helena swiftly and silently without causing any permanent harm, ensuring her capture and the intact retrieval of the priceless data. His heart hammered in his chest, not with fear, but with a raw, visceral anticipation, a potent mix of anger, and a quiet satisfaction that justice was finally within his grasp. He thought of Ava's innocent laughter, of the pure, unwavering trust she had unwittingly placed in the angel, a trust Helena had so cruelly, so cynically exploited. He thought of the tears in Ava's eyes when she learned of the lie, and a renewed surge of conviction flowed through him. The moment came. Marcus, with a prearranged, almost imperceptible signal, subtly shifted his stance, his hand brushing his earbud. Before Helena could react, before she could even register the movement, Julian fired. The dart, almost invisible against the bright morning light, found its mark, a small, almost imperceptible prick on her neck, just beneath her hairline. Her eyes, wide with surprise, then glazed over as her body slumped forward, unconscious. Marcus moved swiftly, securing the hard drive, and Helena, his movements fluid and efficient. The rest of the team moved in, securing the area, ensuring no escape routes were left unmonitored. The operation was a resounding success. The stolen data was retrieved, intact and uncompromised, immediately uploaded to Julian's secure servers, and cross-referenced with the previously siphoned information, confirming the full extent of Helena's illicit activities. Helena was taken into custody, facing a multitude of charges ranging from corporate espionage, aggravated larceny, to digital fraud and conspiracy. The legal battle would be protracted, messy, and undoubtedly public, but Julian was prepared. He had Ms. Evelyn Reed on speed dial, the formidable attorney who had so ably assisted Sophie in her own battle for truth and justice. He knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but he also knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that justice, however slow, would ultimately prevail. The media frenzy that followed was immense, a maelstrom of headlines, breaking news alerts, and speculative reports that saturated every major news outlet. But Julian, with Ms. Reed's shrewd guidance and strategic communication, carefully managed the narrative. Helena Frost's true identity, her extensive history as a notorious corporate operative known for her chameleon-like ability to infiltrate high-value targets, was meticulously exposed. The intricate story of her elaborate deception, her chilling manipulation of Julian's innocent daughter, captivated the public, drawing a collective gasp of outrage. Julian, carefully positioned as a victim of a sophisticated criminal enterprise, emerged from the scandal with his reputation bruised but ultimately intact. His image of an unyielding protector of wealth, paradoxically strengthened by the very challenge he had overcome. His clients, reassured by his swift and decisive action, and particularly by the full recovery of their sensitive data, remained fiercely loyal. Impressed not just by his ability to recover their assets, but by his cunning precision in exposing and apprehending the perpetrator. The healing process, however, extended far beyond the legal and financial realms. The emotional scars remained, particularly the deep wound of Ava's unwitting involvement. Julian knew he had to address it, carefully, gently, continually. He spent countless hours with her, slowly, patiently untangling the threads of deception. He sat with her one evening, long after the sensational headlines had faded and the last of the news vans had departed, the house quiet except for the gentle hum of the air conditioning. "Ava, do you remember talking to the angel statue?" he asked, his voice soft, filled with a tenderness that allowed no room for judgment. He was careful not to blame her, not to instill fear, but to impart wisdom. Ava nodded, her emerald eyes wide, still holding a hint of that innocent confusion. "Yes, Daddy. She was very pretty. She said I was a good helper. She even promised me a real unicorn if I helped her find the magic." Julian's heart ached with a familiar pang of sorrow and regret. "Ava, the angel isn't real. And Helena, the lady you knew, she wasn't a good person. She tricked you." "Sweetheart, she lied to you. She used what you told her to try and take something very important from Daddy, something that belonged to our family and to Daddy's clients." It wasn't your fault. Not even a little bit. You were just being kind and helpful, and she took advantage of that kindness. She broke your trust, and that's a very bad thing. He explained, in simple, age-appropriate terms, the concept of deception, of people pretending to be something they're not. Ava's face crumpled, tears welling in her eyes, betraying the depth of her hurt. She lied to me about the unicorn? She whispered, her voice trembling, the betrayal of the mythical creature almost as painful as the betrayal of trust. Yes, she lied. Julian confirmed, holding her close, pressing her head against his chest, feeling the small tremors of her sobs. And it was wrong of her to do that, completely wrong. But Daddy fixed it. Everything she tried to take, we got it back. And now, Daddy knows to be extra careful about who he trusts. And you, my brave little girl, you taught Daddy an important lesson too, about how even the smallest things, spoken with pure hearts, can sometimes be used by bad people. But also about how strong you are, and how much I love you. You are the strongest, smartest girl I know. He reassured her repeatedly that her love and kindness were precious, but that they needed to be guarded, given wisely. It was a difficult, ongoing conversation, filled with tears and reassurance, but it was absolutely necessary for Ava's emotional well-being. Julian made sure to emphasize that her open nature was a beautiful quality, something to be cherished, not suppressed. Ava, with the remarkable resilience of childhood, slowly but surely began to process the complex layers of the betrayal. Julian found himself teaching her, not just about safety and trust, but about discernment, about recognizing subtle cues in human behavior, about the difference between genuine kindness, manipulative charm. He encouraged her vivid imagination, but also fostered a healthy sense of skepticism, teaching her to question, to observe, to trust her gut feelings when something felt off. He enrolled her in an age-appropriate martial arts class, not out of fear, but to empower her, to instill in her a sense of physical and mental resilience, to build her confidence and self-reliance. The angel statue, despite its removal from the immediate vicinity of the vault, remained a powerful, albeit silent, presence in Julian's life. He had it carefully moved to a less prominent but still beautiful part of the estate, positioned in a secluded, sun-dappled garden, where it stood amidst fragrant roses and ancient olive trees. Its biometric scanner was permanently deactivated, its presence now merely decorative, a beautiful piece of art completely devoid of any hidden function. He even considered selling it, consigning it to a distant past, but something held him back. Perhaps it served as a subtle, constant reminder of the invaluable lesson learned, a quiet monument to his own past blindness and Ava's innocent truth. It was a tangible piece of his personal history, a symbol of growth forged in the crucible of betrayal, a silent guardian of hard-won wisdom. In the months that followed, Julian implemented even more rigorous, multifaceted security protocols. His approach had shifted from merely building impenetrable barriers to cultivating a culture of perpetual vigilance and adaptive defense. He no longer relied solely on static technology and fixed walls. He understood now that human elements, trust, and the delicate intricacies of interpersonal relationships were equally, if not more, crucial. He hired new staff, vetting them with unprecedented scrutiny, conducting extensive background checks and psychological evaluations. He fostered a culture of absolute transparency and mutual accountability within his organization, instituting anonymous reporting systems for any perceived anomalies or suspicious behavior. His once guarded inner circle expanded to include highly specialized cybersecurity professionals and behavioral psychologists, experts in identifying and mitigating human-centric threats. His personal life, too, underwent a profound transformation. He became far more selective with his relationships. His guard, once merely high, now fortified with the wisdom of painful experience, yet without becoming cynical. He learned to differentiate between genuine affection and calculated charm, between honest interaction and subtle manipulation. He distanced himself from the superficial social circles he had once frequented, preferring genuine, deep connections over glittering appearances and transactional networking. He reconnected with old friends he had inadvertently neglected in his relentless pursuit of success, rekindling relationships based on shared history, mutual respect, and genuine affection rather than any perceived benefit. He found solace and profound peace in simple pleasures. Long contemplative walks through the sprawling natural reserves near his estate, immersing himself in classical literature, and most profoundly, cooking elaborate, joyous meals for Ava, experimenting with new recipes together, creating shared sensory experiences. These quiet moments, once overlooked in his drive for professional achievement, now felt profoundly enriching, grounding him in a way his immense wealth never could. He discovered a new appreciation for the simple act of presence, of being fully engaged in the moment with his daughter. His bond with Ava deepened significantly, forged in the crucible of shared vulnerability and renewed trust. They spent more time together, not just in playful games, but in genuine, open conversations. Julian encouraged her to express her feelings, to share her observations, reinforcing the idea that her voice mattered, that her instincts were valuable, and that her unique perspective was a strength. He watched her grow, not into a fearful, withdrawn child, but into a perceptive, resilient little girl, her laughter still chiming like bells, but now infused with a new, quiet wisdom in her emerald eyes. She understood, in her own way, the complexities of the world, but she approached it with an unshakable inner confidence. The whispers in the elite circles about the Millionaire's vault eventually faded, replaced by stories of Julian Marsh's innovative security protocols and his unyielding, almost legendary commitment to client welfare. He had not only recovered from a devastating breach, but had emerged as an undisputed industry leader in secure wealth management, setting new global standards for digital and physical asset protection. His reputation, once built on an illusion of impenetrable technical security, was now founded on a foundation of hard-won wisdom, unwavering ethical integrity, and a profound, nuanced understanding of human nature. The world, for Julian, was still a place of calculated risks, complex challenges, and hidden dangers, but he navigated it with a newfound clarity, his vision no longer clouded by naive trust or the illusion of absolute control. He understood that true security lay not just in what he guarded within reinforced walls, but in how he lived, how he loved, and the profound, sometimes painful lessons he carried from the day a little girl's laughter and a whispered secret to a stone friend. Angel exposed the hidden vulnerabilities of a millionaire's vault. His vault was secure once more, a technological marvel, but his greatest treasure, Ava, was now guarded not just by cutting-edge technology, but by a father's awakened wisdom, a deep communicative bond, and an unshakable love that had withstood the ultimate test of betrayal. The laughter of his little girl, once a sound that briefly hinted at his undoing, now echoed through his home, a triumphant melody of resilience, healing, and hard-won peace. He had faced betrayal head-on, unmasked the villain, and in doing so, had secured not just his fortunes, but the very essence of his family's trust and well-being, proving that even the most meticulous plans can be overcome by the unexpected and rebuilt by truth.